we are ready to get going with our meat goat show. Our first class are feeder goats. They are less than 45 pounds. We have 4 entries in that class. In this class, we have Carrington Weaver from Essex County, Chloe Smith from Montgomery County, Ella Herrera from Chesapeake City, and Tyree Nodine from Chesapeake City. We do need Division I Class 1 in the ready area at this time. Meat goats, Division I Class 1. Carter Mitchell, Adeline Stern, Ren Manbeck, Abigail Shoemaker, Dixie Randolph, Hunter Collier, Carrington Weaver, and Corrine Cooley.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back and looking forward to sorting through your market show today after an outstanding show last night. And I think a good way to start things off with some variation in these underweight goats, but I think a logical place to start. I think one that just kind of strikes you with just a little more show weather type presence. I think just has an advantage in terms of terminal shape and having a little more dimension when you stand behind him. So I think that's where he's a logical place to start. I think from the side you can like the doe that comes here in 2. I think just in terms of neck setting, levelness of spine, hind leg structure, she's very, very good. She strikes me as just a little more maternal in terms of her build. Probably not quite as stout and just shapely at the top side of her skeleton, but I think a quality piece of livestock. I think the next pair gets close, maybe just a little more fragile in terms of their bone work, but I think some goats with some lateness and maturity, ones that will certainly benefit from some time on feed. But again, my congratulations to these 4 exhibitors. Good way to kick things off with. Congratulate them with a round of applause.
Placings for your feeder goats. First place goes to Ella Herrera, second to Tyree Nodine, third to Chloe Smith, and fourth to Carrington Weaver. We'll now have our first class of meat goats, Division I Class 1. These goats range in weight from 45 to 55 pounds. We have Carter Mitchell from Essex County, Adeline Stern from Shenandoah, Ren Manbeck from Augusta, Abigail Shoemaker from Loudon, Dixie Randolph from Caroline, Hunter Collier from Madison, Carrington Weaver from Essex, and Corrine Cooley from Frederick. Class 2, please be in the ready area. Class 2, Nina Herrera, Colton Hoover, Evelyn Dudding, Garrett Norman, Kylie Blevins, Waylon Wilkins, Sarah Myers, Amelia Lawrence, and Emma Wood.
nice class. I think a trio that kind of separate themselves, and then amongst those three, I think there's one that's just a little more shapely and just a little more stout when you get behind him. And I don't know if he's perfect in terms of his shoulder and the way it hooks into his forerib, but I think certainly acceptable enough. I still looks like a show weather from the side, and I think just in terms of his shape and his muscularity up high, certainly has a very distinct advantage in that regard. I think just a good combination weather to go ahead and win this class comfortably for me. I think the one that comes here in 2. I think two-dimensionally you really like that one. I think just in terms of neck set, levelness of spine, length to hip, hind leg structure, he's very, very good. Unfortunately, he just kind of closes up underneath and gets a little flat in terms of his body. You get your hands on him, he's just a little higher chined and just doesn't feed out of the back of his shoulder with enough meat animal product. I think the one that comes here in 3, again, a lot like that one ahead of him. I think one's got some substance down low, neat look from the side, just a little flatter yet, and when you get behind him, probably just a little plain in terms of his hip and stifle. Arguably, just the densest muscle goat's the one that comes here in 4. I think one that's certainly moderate, opened up, has got some stoutness from behind. When you back off the side of him, he strikes you as just a little quick in terms of his maturity curve, got a little more condition on him for one at this weight and this stage within his growth curve, and just a little off in terms of the way he's built and constructed up front in terms of his blade and the way it hooks up front. One comes in next, good in terms of his side profile, long neck, smooth shoulder. He's got some levelness right behind his blade. Another one in terms of his hip and rump, just a little too flat and a little too narrow from behind. Good class, a lot of depth in here. Again, good way to start off this first division. Congratulate those exhibitors.
For Class 1, first place goes to Corinne Cooley. Second place, Abigail Shoemaker. Third, Ren Manbeck. Fourth, Hunter Collier. Fifth, Dixie Randolph. Sixth, Carrington Weaver. Seventh, Adeline Stern. And eighth, Carter Mitchell. As a reminder, class winners today will be receiving scholarship forms. Please make sure you fill those out and turn those back in as soon as you can. Those are for class winners and overall grand and reserve from our Meat Goat Show. Last call, Waylon Wilkins. Your class is going in the ring. Waylon Wilkins. For Class 2, we have Nina Herrera from Chesapeake City, Colton Hoover from Rockingham, Evelyn Dudding from Craig, Garrett Norman from Fauquier, Kylie Blevins from Washington, Waylon Wilkins from Rockingham, Sarah Myers from Culpeper, Amelia Lawrence from Fauquier, Emma Wood from Page County. Class 2 goats range in weight from 57 to 66 pounds.
Well, very, very nice top trio, and within that trio, I think one I like a great deal, and honestly, the red-legged one that we lead off with, I probably like even better just on the go in his natural state when he just gets out and prances, man. That thing is up-headed, he's dead level in terms of his spine and very, very good off of his hip and hind leg. And what I like about him compared to the one that's in second, he's just a little neater and a little more immature about his head and his neck and his skull for goats at this weight and within this division. I just read him to be just a little bit better in terms of his maturity curve in my eye, and one that still touches and handles his muscle expression very good at the top side of his skeleton. Now, he's not quite as just bold in terms of his center body as that one that comes there in 2, but I think plenty good enough for one that's in Class 2 of the morning. One that comes here in 2 is stout, dense, very good in terms of his handle. I like that one right behind his shoulder, just in terms of his expression. The turn that he's got in his center rib cage when you get on top of those is very, very good. You know, I think a goat for that kind of stoutness up high, he's just a nickel refined in terms of his foot size for me, and when you get out and set him loose, I just don't know if he ever cooperates the best, but still, I think he's just a nickel more upright in his shoulder, maybe just a nickel lower in terms of his neck attachment anyway, but one that reads with just a nickel more maturity than that class winner. Well-presented one comes here next in 3. Again, big-footed. I like his density of rear leg, and I think he's got an advantage over the 2 that precede him in that regard. You know, he's just a nickel more wrinkled up in terms of his height. I think that takes away from him just ever so slightly when you back off of him, but it's just the way he's built right behind his shoulder that gets him in trouble for me. I think he needs to hook up just with a little more strength right behind his blade to get just a truly eye-appealing look from the side, but that's another one that touches fresh. He's good in terms of his muscularity. Just wish we could redesign him up front just a little bit. One that comes in next, another stout-boned one you like in terms of his density down low. That's one that's got a big rib cage and a big span up high when you get on top of him. It's just the way he's built in his rear third to get him in trouble for me. A little off in terms of his tail set, and when you stand behind him, he's just a little shallow twisted and a little flat in terms of his stifle shape, but nonetheless, I think rib cage and bone work in that one are very, very good. One that comes in next, late maturing, tall-shouldered, elevated up front. I like his extra length of hip when you study him from the side. He's one that's a little more refined, got a little extra set to his hind leg. I think one that just kind of gives up some stoutness and some muscularity relative to the ones that precede him within this lineup. Again, very, very good class, very nice trio at the top end. If you would, congratulate them with a round of applause.
Placings for Class 2. First place goes to Kylie Blevins. Second, Evelyn Dudding. Third, Colton Hoover. Fourth, Waylon Wilkins. Fifth, Emma Wood. Sixth, Sarah Myers. Seventh, Nina Herrera. Eighth, Garrett Norman. And ninth, Amelia Lawrence. Class 3 is our final class of lightweight market goats. We have Kelsey Caldwell of Rockbridge, Bethany Norman of Fauquier, Carter Mitchell of Essex, Marie Claire DeRozier of Shenandoah, Preston Widener of Pennsylvania, Eli Wood of Page, Samuel Pulliam of Giles, Ella Warrens of Rockingham, Connor Spangler of Floyd, Rachel Hale from Hanover, Kaylee Bergeron from Pennsylvania, and Colton Hemp from Augusta. These goats range in weight from 67 to 74 pounds. We need first, second, and third from Class 1 and Class 2 to be in the ready area, please. First, second, and third.
Boy, very, very good class. I think 6 really, really nice ones in here, and then another group that, again, just very solid. Maybe just run out of some of those extras that it takes to be at the top end of a very good class at a state fair. And again, I think there's some give and take. And what makes this class so good is, again, there's a lot of quality represented, but it's challenging because there's just about every size and shape and form that you could possibly dream of represented in this top 6. And so, again, I think there's some shuffle, and you could do some different things with them, especially kind of on through the middle part of this class. But ultimately, I think just the white-headed one's just the most comfortable one I'm leading off with. Again, I think just props up with logo side, and I think one that touches just phenomenally well. Crisp, fresh, very square at the edge of his back. Very, very good over his loin edge. And again, that just neck set, shoulder, chest, and sternum is all very, very good. Now, my hang-up on him is he's just a little awkward in the way he's built in his hip and hind leg. And I don't know if his legs were pulled, if he would just strike you as the stoutest boned one in the world. I'd certainly like to make him a little more dense off of his rear leg, but I think that's a good one to go ahead and lead off with. I think the one that comes here in second just keeps moving up in my mind because that one's pretty bulletproof. He's not as extreme looking up front as that class winner. He's not as cool and as impressive in terms of his rump and hind leg as the one that comes here in 3, but he's up fronted, he's level in the way he's built, and his biggest advantage over that one that comes here in 3 is just freshness. His skin, hair, and hide and handle is just way more on point than that one that comes here in 3, and that ends up being the difference. Again, not the stoutest legged one, not the most unique one, but I think when it comes to putting together totals, that one's very, very nice. Comes in at 3 is real close to being very, very good. That one's rump and squareness from behind, his density of his rear leg, and not just that, the way he's built and the way he goes off of that hind leg is very, very good. You know, I just wish the front 1/3 of him matched. He's a little coarse up front, a little thick about his neck, a little rounder in terms of his shoulder. And the fact that he's so wrinkled up and loose-hided just kind of accentuates. That's where I'd like to change him. You know, he kind of draws you into where his problems may lie. And when you get your hands on him, it's just not near fresh enough right behind his blade. A little pinched right there the way he comes out of the back of his shoulder. But the back 1/3 of that thing is absolutely dead on. And where he's good, he's very, very good. One that comes here in 4 just keeps moving up again. I think just in terms of height, the shoulder, the way he's built in terms of his freshness and squareness right behind his blade is very good. I like him in terms of his underlying progression quite a bit better than the one that's going to come here in 5. It's just when you catch him at a rear 3/4, I don't know if his hip and rump and stifle's quite impressive enough to run with those up here at the top. A little more slope to his hip, a little more cut up in terms of his stifle and his twist, but a very nice goat in terms of his front 2/3. On the standstill, I like this one that comes here in 5th. That thing is sleek looking in terms of his top line, the way he's constructed from the base of his shoulder to the base of his tail, I think is very, very good. Very crisp in terms of his muscle and his shape as well. I guess to me, that one strikes me as a little frail, a little more refined in terms of his bone. But when we get out of him and set him loose, his underline and just visual weight is wedged the wrong way. I think he cuts up into his rear flank and just doesn't balance quite good enough in terms of his underline for me. But at the standstill, that one's tall shoulder, dead level, and handles very, very good. Just need to change his underline and rear leg. One that comes there in 6, I think deserves recognition. Stout bone, good built kind of goat. I think it's fresh enough. He just gets a little flatter and maybe one that just doesn't handle quite as crisp right behind his shoulder. Very good class. My compliments to all those exhibitors. Put some of your hands together, make some noise for them as they head on out.
Placings for Class 3. First place goes to Ella Warnes. Second place, Kelsey Caldwell. Third, Colton Hemp. Fourth, Kaylee Bergeron. Fifth, Marie-Claire DeRozier. Sixth, Samuel Prilliam. Seventh, Eli Wood. Eighth, Preston Widener. Ninth, Rachel Hale. 10th, Connor Spangler. 11th, Bethany Norman. 12th, Carter Mitchell. We'll now have our lightweight champion drive from classes 1, 2, and 3. From class 1, we have Corrine Cooley of Frederick, Abigail Shoemaker of Loudon, and Ren Manbeck of Augusta. From class 2, we have Kylie Blevins from Washington County, Evelyn Dudding from Craig, and Colton Hoover from Rockingham. In Class 3, we have Ella Warnes of Rockingham, Kelsey Caldwell of Rockbridge, and Colton Hemp from Augusta. Middleweight Goats Class 1, please check in. Middleweight Goats Division 2 Class 1, check in. Lucy Williams, Hunter Collier, Charlotte Bowman, Taylor Mitchell, John Hale, Colton Thornton, Shyler Zolman, Kelsey Caldwell, Luke Hurt, and Brio Byer.
One absolutely incredible division. You never know kind of what you're going to get into in Division One. It seems like it's one way or another. It's either really, really good or all the heats obviously coming in later in the day, and maybe it is. But again, for this first division to come out of the gates this morning, very, very impressed. So my compliments to these 9 exhibitors. In particular, that last class, is very, very deep of just good ones. I think speaks to the depth of this division overall, and so it's been fun to kind of get them all back out here and kind of reevaluate them. Decision's not easy because there's one that I really, really like that strikes me as just a nickel immature that, I think's maybe just a nickel flatter bodied out here today compared to some, but man, is my speed. When we get that thing out and set him in motion, and again, when she finally gets him put together, can give you a good look. And then there's one that's just absolutely on the money, dead level, 12 o'clock today, that just looks like a show weather, that maybe I'd have some tweaks on just in terms of the stoutness of his rear leg and the way it's assembled, but nonetheless, I think it's a very, very good one. So again, I think it's pretty obvious it's down between Class 2 and 3 for me, and then again, maybe gets a little closer for third overall within this division. But I'll go show you. I like those, but my compliments to everybody in this first division out of the gate this morning. Very, very good. They deserve your round of applause. Put your hands together for them.
Your champion lightweight comes from Class 3, exhibited by Ella Warnes of Rockingham. And reserve comes from Class 2, exhibited by Kylie Blevins of Washington County. Third overall also comes from Class 3, exhibited by Kelsey Caldwell from Rockbridge. We'll now start our middleweight division with Division II Class 1. In this class, we have Lucy Williams of Essex County, Hunter Collier of Madison, Charlotte Bowman of Montgomery, Taylor Mitchell of Essex, John Hale from Hanover, Colton Thornton from Augusta, Shyler Zolman of Botetourt, Kelsey Caldwell of Rockbridge, Luke Hurt from Madison County, and Bree O'Brien from Richmond. These goats range in weight from 75 to 80 pounds. Shyler Zolman. 8th, Luke Hurt. 9th, John Hale. And 10th, Lucy Williams. Class 2 middleweight division is coming in. Class 2 of middleweights, Division 2. We have Carter Mitchell of Essex County, Michaela McPherson from Chesapeake City, Riley Shirley of Clark, Kaylee Bergeron of Pittsylvania, Ruth Hale of Hanover, Lindsay Babb of Page, Brenna Pennybacker of Rockingham, Sawyer Wilkins of Rockingham, Charles Farmer of Pennsylvania, and Rebecca Pembleton from Cumberland. We need Class 3 Division 2 in the ready area. Division 2 Class 3, Colton Atkins, Selena Perez, Bethany Norman, Avery Deacon, Luke Hurt, London Vanderhyde, Paisley Hilliard, and Whitley Kopp.
make them stand apart from the rest. And yet I don't know if there's a perfect one amongst this pair. I'd kind of like to blend some parts and pieces to them, but ultimately just get more comfortable with the fact that this one's just a little more solid that I lead off with. I think he's just better in terms of his forerib shape, and the way his blade hooks up into his forerib and body cavity is way more tidy and just a little bit neater than the one that comes here in second. And honestly, I think his physical feel is just more appropriate today for me, and I think just strikes me just a little more athletic looking than this one that comes here in second. Now, he's not perfect. I wish his hip was just a little longer. I wish his tail was cranked up there just a little higher. If that one was just a little longer and leveler rumped, then it gets easier to use him in a run giveaway, because I think his front 2/3 are quite a bit more ideal than this one that comes here in 2. One that comes here in 2 is maxed out. He's well presented. I think he obviously hits the ring with some extra presence. He's got a white hide. He's got some extra density down low. You like those things about him. I think once you get past that, I just keep asking myself, he just doesn't tie it together. He's just not quite neat enough in the way his neck sits in his blade. The way his blade fits into his forerib just kind of accentuates the fact that he's not quite good enough there, and then he's just way too full. I think that kind of detracts from him and kind of makes those highlights, those pieces that aren't quite right with him up front. And then when he just goes, he's just not quite flexible and just authoritative enough in the way he drives off of his rear leg. Well presented, big rump when you get on top of him, fresh. Just not quite right in terms of the way he's built up front, and his fill just accentuates his forerib problem today. One that comes in next, when he gets him put together, I like him in terms of his length of spine, his levelness of construction. He's quite a bit better in the way his blade fits into his forerib and rib cage better than the one that's at second within this class. On the standstill, I can get sold that there's some things I really, really like about him. You get behind him, he's just a little more ordinary in terms of his rump and stifle, but when we ask him to lead, his neck just sits just a nickel low in terms of his shoulder, gets a little more U-necked in the way he's built up front. Need to change him there. The black-headed one that comes in next is very interesting. I think his front 2/3 are dead on. That one's got a cool neck set, big chest, a big forearm. He's got some substance down low, and that one's really fresh and square right behind his shoulder. I like those things about him. He's a hip and a rump and a stifle shape away from winning this class pretty easily. Unfortunately, you get behind those goats, he's the most disappointing of this top 5 and just gets a little more ordinary in the way he's built down to the seam of his pants and to his. One that comes in next, again, good from the side. I like his just two-dimensional view in terms of his neck set, levelness of spine. That's another one. It's just not quite stout enough, not quite manly enough in terms of his stoutness and squareness up high. But again, a very good class, interesting top pair there. They all deserve your congratulations. Make some noise for them as they head on out.
Results for Class 2. First place goes to Kaylee Bergeron. Second goes to Sawyer Wilkins. Third, Riley Shirley. Fourth, Michaela McPherson. Fifth, Charles Farmer. Sixth, Brenna Pennybacker. Seventh, Ruth Hale. Eighth, Carter Mitchell. Ninth, Lindsey Babb. And 10th, Becca Pembleton. Class of middleweights, Division II Class 3 is entering the ring. We have Colton Atkins of Warren, Selena Perez of Virginia Beach, Bethany Norman of Fauquier, Avery Deacon of Rockbridge, Luke Hurt of Madison, London Vanderhyde of Pittsylvania, Paisley Hilliard of Page County, and Whitley Kopp of Washington. Again, we need first, second, and third places in the ready area for the middleweight division drive from classes 1 and 2. First, second, and third places, Division II, classes 1 and 2. We want to welcome back our judge, Mr. Barrett Carlisle. He grew up in Lubbock, Texas, and went on to Butler Community College. He was a member of the national champion livestock judging team while there. After Butler, he graduated from Kansas State. He currently works for Zoetis Animal Health and owns and operates Diamond Sea Club Lambs with his wife, Jara Settles. Again, let's please give our judge, Mr. Barrett Carlisle, a round of applause for being with us today. Again, we want to remind you we have an official photographer for shows this weekend at the State Fair of Virginia. Here in the sheep show ring and the goat show ring, we have Mandy Rooker Photography. You can view all photos at mandyrooker.smugmug.com and follow them at Mandy Rooker Photography on their Facebook page. Also, if you have folks at home and they want to watch the live stream, you can check that out at showbarnflix.com, and you can follow Showbarnflix on their Facebook page.
Well, nice class. Again, I think some variation and some spread in them from top to bottom, but I thought this top pair were kind of the ones that were pretty easy to find within this class. I think just having some of those extras in regards to just freshness and balance and kind of separated themselves in that regard, and just a very solid, very fundamental piece of livestock to be 3 within this class. But again, within the pair up top, I think there's some trade-offs. Ultimately, one last time putting your hands on them, I think the one that's just quite a bit fresher and just square right behind his shoulder, and that ends up being the difference for me. I think just when you get them put together, you can appreciate the way he's built up front, just in terms of his height, the shoulder, his neck set. I like his hind leg assembly very well, and another one that's got some substance in regards to feet and some extra bone. But I guess if I'm going to tweak him, it's just the way he's built off of his rear third. Just a little low in his tail setting. I like to crank that up just a little bit, and that's where the 1 and 2's got an advantage. But I think just his decisive advantage in terms of freshness and squareness behind his blade is kind of what ultimately splits it for me. Young lady does a nice job coming here in 2 and brings us a very solid, well-presented goat that I think, again, just feet and leg structure is very, very good. I guess when you get your hands on him, just a little plain, a little more nondescript right behind his blade. That's where I'd like to change him. But I do think he's an upgrade in regards to his hip design over that one that goes ahead and starts, and so that's why it's close. Again, as I mentioned earlier, very fundamental piece of livestock comes here in 3. Opened up, big bodied, big muscled, and one that's got some squareness up high. I guess you can get off the side of him, just a little plainer in the way he's constructed up front. Got a little hitch in his spine there. I'd like to relax him right there in the middle of his back. One that comes in next, big-footed. I think one that's got some ruggedness of structure you certainly like. Another one I think just in terms of body shape is plenty acceptable. You know, I think he's his rear third and his tail and his rump and the way he's built out of his hip and hind leg is what gets him in trouble. Just prevents him from really balancing up and striking you with a look of quality from the side. I think the one that comes in next, a little elevation, long neck, level spine kind of goat that just gets too fragile in terms of his bone work and just a little too narrow as you watch those goats go away from you. But again, very good class. My compliments to those exhibitors. Make some noise for them.
Results from Division II Class 3. First place goes to Colton Atkins. Second to Avery Deacon. Third to London Vanderhyde. Fourth to Paisley Hilliard. Fifth, Selena Perez. Sixth, Whitley Kopp. Seventh, Bethany Norman. And eighth, Luke Hurt. We'll be calling back Classes 1, 2, and 3 for our middleweight champion drive of Market Goats. From Class 1, we have Kelsey Caldwell of Rockbridge, Colton Thornton of Augusta, and Charlotte Bowman of Montgomery. From Class 2, we have Kaylee Bergeron from Pittsylvania County, Sawyer Wilkins from Rockingham, and Riley Shirley from Clark. And from Class 3, we have Colton Atkins from Warren County, Avery Deacon from Rockbridge, and London Vanderhyde from Pennsylvania. Division 3 Class 1, please be in the ready area. Division 3 Class 1, Lucy Williams, Mary Garner, Henrik Wells, Emma Wood, Jenny Gray Widener, Anna Summerendike, Samuel Pulliam, Luke Hurt, Henrik Wells, and Grant Grubb. Our goat sponsors for the weekend include Cumberland County Farm Bureau, Montgomery County Farm Bureau, McPherson Farms, Rocktown Show Goats, S&R Meat Goats, CSF Show Goats, Creative Virtue Crafts, the Funk Family, Hubbard Feeds, and Redifer Livestock.
Well, before we go any further within this division, 9 individuals out here that have done a very, very good job, and they certainly deserve your congratulations. So before we go any further, put your hands together for them, show them some appreciation. So we're working through these classes. I thought every class kind of presented its own challenges that made it kind of hard to sort through and line up and arrange at a place that just made total sense, just because, again, there's much give and take in them, and I think this division represents that, kind of what we see. And ultimately, as I look at all 9 of them and I think about putting together a top 3, ultimately, in my eye, it comes down to these 3 class winners, and it's just a matter of kind of which way you want to shuffle them around. And again, I argue with you a whole heck of a lot if you wanted to kind of switch them around, because your priorities were a little bit different. I'm going to re-describe these 3 and kind of tell you what my thought process is on them, just so we're pretty clear on kind of where I stand on what I see on them. From the outside, I think this Class 1 winner for me wins pretty easily. I think just in terms of neck, shoulder, levelness of top line, length and levelness of rump and tail set, that's where he's got a pretty distinctive advantage, and one I like going around the ring as well. I think he's up-headed, he's level-spined, I think he uses his running gear right. You know, I think that's one you can question just a little bit in terms of bone, but, you know, I don't necessarily call him too frail out here. My question is, when you get at a rear 3/4, I don't know if he's just quite as big and bold in terms of his rump and stifle shape, but my big thing is his first impression is not just necessarily the strongest, because his hide is a little scarred up. He doesn't touch quite as fresh. He's kind of battling, I don't know, some fungus or some staph or something, or has in the past, and I think it kind of deters from him just a little bit, but that's a high quality goat that I love just in terms of his build and the presence that he has from the outside. One that comes out of Class 2 is a longer, leveler, square rump away from being big time. That thing's chest and forearm and neck set up front's really good. His feet are enormous and perfectly square when you go to the ground on him. I really, really like those things about him. And you just talk about boldness of forerib, squareness right behind his shoulder. That's kind of where his advantages fall within this lineup. Again, his rump's not quite good enough. And when we get out of him and set him loose, he kind of really wants to drop his tail, kind of roll up underneath of himself. That one just has to be better there for me to get completely sold on where he fits within this lineup. But again, his neck set, his chest width, his forearm, his forerib, his bone, all those things are very, very, very good in that one. One that comes in next is interesting. I went around a Class 3 because there's times where he can give you a look that is very, very good. When he gets underneath of him, props him up, that thing's got some elevation up front. His parts and pieces fit together right. His underlying progression's what I like, and one I really like in terms of his hind leg setting and his extra substance down low, I think is good. Again, a lot like that one that's ahead of him. When we get out of him and set him loose, he kind of wants to drop his tail just a little bit. I think if you could crank that up in him, it gets easier to run with him one way or another within this class. But that one's fresh. He's well presented, one that touches very, very good. So again, it's just kind of parts and pieces in those, kind of where I see him as I back off of them and just kind of go with what I like. I get more comfortable using one, and then again, if you want to shuffle them around, I'm not going to argue with you. But my congratulations to all 9 of these exhibitors. They deserve a round of applause. Fantastic division. My congratulations to them. Put your hands together for them.
Exhibited by Kelsey Caldwell. Reserve comes from Class 2.
very nice class. I think a trio of them that's kind of surface for me, and then another pair of them I think are very close as well here in 4 and 5. But there's some give and take in these, and I'll go back and forth because there's parts and pieces to each of them I really like. But ultimately, I think this class winner just strikes me as just a little more athletic in terms of his muscle tone and his stoutness when you get behind him. I think just his depth of twist and stifle shape is a little bit better than the one that comes here in second. And we get out and set him loose. I think he's another long-necked one that's just a little more tidy in terms of his hide and his skin out here. I think that kind of helps with this first impression. Just a very good one to go ahead and start. When it comes in second, I really like when he's on the standstill. That one's perfectly level from the back of his shoulder to the base of his tail. That one's got a good hind leg underneath of him and some extra stoutness when it comes to some foot and some bone. He's a little looser hided up front. I think it's more evident when those goats are in motion, but you get a rear three-quarter of that guy, just a notch more cut up in terms of his twist, a little flatter in terms of his stifle shape, but I like his expansion right behind his shoulder a little bit better than the one that's going to come here in 3, and that ends up being the difference within that. A very good one comes here in 3 again. Fundamentally very sound. I like his bone work, his hind leg assembly. You know, that one's got some just some levelness to the way he's constructed as well. I think, again, paints a very good picture of quality out here. Amongst those 3, he's probably the most disappointing when you get your hands on him. Just a little more ordinary in the way he feeds out of the back of his shoulder. Probably not quite as robust in terms of his forerib and body shape. One that comes next, very solid. Moderate, opened up, got some stoutness to him. You know, he's one that's a little plainer in terms of his design, a little deeper up front, a little rounder off his rear skeleton. We could make that one just a little neater looking. He's got this body and the muscle to run with the best of them within this class. A little different kind to round off our 5th place one here. Awesome looking from the side. That one is long-necked, level spine. Has got some flexibility to his skeleton. I think when you get behind him, that's where he's just a little flatter built, maybe not quite as stout and shapely as some of them up here, but a nice one to go there and be 5th. 4 nice ones kind of round things off with here. My congratulations to all the kids and exhibitors within this class. They deserve a round of applause as they head on out.
Results for Division III Class 1. First place goes to Anna Summerendike. Second, Grant Grubb. Third, Samuel Pulliam. Fourth, Henrik Wells. Fifth, Jenny Gray Widener. Sixth, Mary Garner. Seventh, Emma Wood. Eighth, Lucy Williams. And ninth, Luke Hurt. Division III Class 2 is in the ring. Division III Class 2, we have Anna Summerendike from Virginia Beach, Kelsey Caldwell from Rockbridge, Carrington Weaver from Essex, Malachi Music from Russell, Olivia Fisher from Shenandoah, Selena Perez from Virginia Beach, and Paisley Hilliard from Page, and Abby Lane Widener from Pennsylvania. Division III Class 3, please check in. Division III Class 3, Clara Grubb, Emma Babb, Leighton Dudding, Preston Widener, Anna Summerendike, Addison Vaughn, Ruth Hale, and Dixie Randolph.
probably as contrasting of a top pair we've had through the ring so far yet today. And I think both of them are very high-quality livestock. I think both of them, again, kind of catch your eye as soon as they come in, as those are the two that need to sort up. And kind of where you want to put some emphasis, I think you could go back and forth. And ultimately, I just couldn't decide on if this one in second is just quite tidy enough, and the way he just comes together and pieces everything together consistently enough, and that's why I ultimately end up going the way I do. And the one that we lead off with, it's not as dynamic up front. He's not as tall-shouldered. He's not as long-necked. Maybe not quite as freaky shallow at the floor of his chest as that one that's in second is, but he's got a significant advantage in terms of forerib shape and the way the back of the way the top of his shoulder fits into his top line, and the way that front third just fits into the rest of his body cavity is quite a bit better. And when you stand behind the livestock at a rear three-quarter, I think just his extra depth of twist and curvature to his stifle muscle is a little bit more ideal. Now, when we set him loose, he's maybe just a freckle low in terms of the base of his tail and maybe just a little extra set to his hind leg. I think you could make those tweaks to make his hip and hind leg just totally perfect and ideal in my mind. But his advantage in terms of forerib shape and the way he's pieced together up front is why I go ahead and use him to win. Now, there's times where I catch looks of this one that's in second that I absolutely love. His elevation up front, his length of neck, his shallowness of chest, all those things are undeniable in terms of kind of where he's good. He is very, very good. Yes. Wish he more consistently tied all those things together. We get out of that thing and set him loose. He gets up right in his shoulder. He really breaks down right behind his blade and gets a little distracting in terms of how off he is in terms of his top line. And for one that's built like that, he's also just a little short and steeper out of his rump as well. And you combine that with the fact that he's just a little flatter stifled. I think there's times where he looks absolutely dead on the money, elite kind of look from the side. And then there's times where I just don't really like the way he's pieced together. And that inconsistency is end up what gets him second in my mind. But again, if you want some exotic pieces, he can certainly fit the bill. One that comes here in three is just very solid, very fundamental, moderate, good-bodied, opened up, stoutness, all those things really fit him to a T. He's a little dingier hided today, a little wrinkled up in terms of his neck, just a little plainer in terms of his general look. I don't know if he's quite as dynamic in terms of his build and design to get around that top pair, but his moderation, body type, and muscularity, go ahead and get him over a lot of them within this class. A very solid one comes here in fourth as well. Just moderation, body type, bone. Again, those things describe that one as well. He's a little off in terms of his shoulder angle, gets a little deeper in terms of his chest. At times we get him on the go, doesn't hold his top line in him quite as neat on the go. But again, fundamentally a very good livestock just in terms of having some body and muscularity to him. Different kind of goat comes here in fifth in terms of lateness and maturity, length of neck, extension up front. Those things are on that one, and I like that one substance down low as well. I just don't know for this size, this weight, if he's got just enough to him in terms of body type, dimension, and spread when you get behind those goats. I think up the top five, he's one of the more disappointing ones in terms of hip and stifle, but very, very good class, some give and take in that top pair. Put your hands together and congratulate those exhibitors.
Results from Class 2. First goes to Anna Summerendike of Virginia Beach. Second place, Kelsey Caldwell of Rockbridge. Third, Olivia Fisher. Fourth, Abby Lane Widener. Fifth, Selena Perez. Sixth, Paisley Hilliard. Seventh, Malachi Music. And eighth, Carrington Weaver. We'll have our final class of market goats today. Heavyweight Division 3, Class 3. We have Clara Grubb from Wythe County, Emma Babb from Page, Leighton Duddig from Craig, Preston Widener from Pennsylvania, Anna Summerendike, Virginia Beach, Addison Vaughn from Richmond, Ruth Hale from Hanover, and Dixie Randolph from Caroline. We need our lightweight and middleweight champion, reserve, and third overall to be in the ready area at this time. From lightweight, we need Ella Warrens, Kylie Blevins, and Kelsey Caldwell. And from middleweights, Kelsey Caldwell, Colton Atkins, and Kaylee Bergeron.
I think a class that ended out with some lot. I think just kind of, in my eye anyway, just kind of go the way they're lined up amongst this top trio, and then some very solid ones, again, to round things off with amongst this class. But I think amongst the top pair, I think both of them are muscular enough, although I think one of them strikes you as just a little more moderate and dense all the way through. I think that class winner is just so much more captivating from the side. I think when she gets underneath of him, puts him together, he's got some elevation up front. His neck attachment's very good. I think he's just a little bit more ideal in terms of how his spine's set in him than this one that's going to come here in second. And again, I think certainly acceptable in terms of his foot and bone. But I think just very well presented, eye-catching kind of market to go ahead and win this class. One that comes in second is Broad from head to toe. That thing's stout-skulled. He's big-footed. Got a big forearm and a big rib cage in him. Again, there's some pieces I like about that one a great deal, and I think because of those, he comfortably has to slide up and into this class. You know, I guess to me, you back off the side of him, that weather's just not quite as unique up front. A little more cresty in terms of his head and his pole and his neck. I don't know if his top line's quite smooth enough. Right there in the middle of his back, just a slight hitch right there in his spine. I'd like to change that about him just a little bit. But again, fundamentally, a very, very good market animal to be second within this class. On the standstill, I like the one that comes here in three. Again, probably a little smoother built than the one that's ahead of him with this lineup. You know, just his neck set, his spine, all those things are very good in that one. Unfortunately, we set him loose. He just kind of falls apart. He opens up in his shoulder, gets a little active in his blade, and the way he's built up front when he's on the go. But again, I think standing still, he deserves to be at the top end of this class pretty easily. Big-footed, big-chested, big forearmed one comes here in four. Again, those things are very good on that one. I like him from his hook bones forward. It's just the way he's built in his hip and his hind leg. A little steep out of his rump, a little more hook and a little more set to his rear leg. Just not the same squareness and stoutness when you get behind him. But again, the front two-thirds of him are very good. Practical, good-bodied, sound-structured one is the paint weather that's fifth here. Again, just from the side, not quite as unique. A little deeper chested, a little rounder built. I think both those things kind of deter from that one's balance and eye appeal just ever so slightly. But very good heavyweight class there. My compliments to all those exhibitors. Put your hands together for them as they head on out the ring.
Results from Class 3. First place goes to Anna Summerndike, Virginia Beach. Second place, Clara Grubb from Wythe County. Third place, Leighton Dunning of Craig. Fourth, Preston Widener of Pennsylvania. Fifth, Dixie Randolph of Caroline. Sixth, Ruth Hale of Hanover. And seventh, Emma Babb of Page. Now for our final drive for heavyweight Division III goats. From Class 1, we'll have Anna Summerndike, Grant Grubb, and Samuel Pulliam. From Class 2, we'll have Anna Summerndike, Kelsey Caldwell, and Olivia Fisher. And from Class 3, we'll have Anna Summerndike, Clara Grubb, and Leighton Dunning.
And again, a lot like the comments I echoed in the first. The heavy division's one of those you never know if all the heat's showing up in that division or if they're all just a little older and a little past their prime and a little past 12 o'clock. But I think this division has been very, very good from the first class to the third one. Just still some very fresh, well-presented market animals that, again, come to us in some different variations in terms of type and kind and size. But nonetheless, I'm very pleased with the 9 exhibitors out here once again for another outstanding division. So my compliments to everybody behind all of these. As I start putting together a top 3, to me there's 3 that just kind of separate themselves, and then amongst those 3 there's just one that just keeps striking me as one that just very much looks the part out here, and then maybe gets a little bit closer in terms of which order I like 2 and 3. But once again, we'll keep things rolling here. My congratulations to these 9 individuals. Outstanding heavy division. One last time, put your hands together for them as I go out and select your champions.
Your champion comes from Class 3. Your reserve comes from Class 2, and third overall comes from Class 1. All 3 exhibited by Anna Summerdike from Virginia Beach. We will now do our Grand Champion Market Goat Drive. We're going to bring back our lightweights and our middleweights while we gather those up. We want to thank our goat sponsors again today. Our sponsor for the Grand Champion Market Goat sponsor is CSF Show Goats. Reserve Champion Market Goat sponsor is the Funk family. We also want to thank Cumberland County Farm Bureau, Montgomery County Farm Bureau, McPherson Farms, Rocktown Show Goats, S&R Meat Goats, Creative Virtue Crafts, and Hubbard Feeds, as well as Redifer Livestock. We also want to thank the State Fair of Virginia, Virginia Farm Bureau, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia Youth Animal Science Program, VDAX, Farm Credit of the Virginias, First Bank and Trust, and the Ag Lending Division of the Bank of Botetourt. At the conclusion of the Market Goat Show, there will be a break until 4 p.m. At 4 p.m., we will have the Registered Breeding Sheep Show. And at 7:30 this evening will be the Virginia Show Circuit End-of-Year Awards. If you were a Virginia Showmasters Circuit participant, there is a year-end survey they want you to complete. There are QR codes around the show ring today. If you participated in the Virginia Showmasters Circuit, please scan one of those QR codes and take their end-of-the-year survey. They appreciate it. All right, from our lightweight division, our champion was Ella Warnes. Our reserve champion was Kylie Blevins. And our third place lightweight division was Kelsey Caldwell. Our middleweight division, our champion was Kelsey Caldwell. Our reserve was Colt Atkins, and our third overall was Kaylee Bergeron. And in our heavyweight division, our champion was Anna Summerendike. Our reserve was Anna Summerendike, and our third overall was Anna Summerendike.
Well, as we come to wrap up your goat show here, first of all, just want to say thank you and to Dr. Greiner, everybody behind me that make this thing roll and make make it easy for these exhibitors to come exhibit at the Virginia State Fair. I think all of these guys certainly deserve your recognition, your appreciation, and just a simple thank you. And so before we go any further, that's what I want to say, just simply that. Thank you for the opportunity to come back. I came in several years ago and certainly enjoyed my time here, and always tell people proudly that relative to the number total ahead of the goats that get exhibited here within this show, you could go all over the Midwest, wherever you wanted to go, and not find a state fair this deep and this good of quality livestock. And so it's fun to come sort through. It's challenging, but it's fun. So I've enjoyed it, so thank you. Before we go any further, everybody behind me deserves a round of applause. So if you would, put your hands together. Again, it's fun. It's challenging. I mentioned all day yesterday in the Doe Show, and again several times here today. You know, this is all just one man's opinion on a given day, and can go a lot of different ways, especially when you get a lineup like this. They're all quality animals, but yet they're just all so different. And in the livestock industry, we just kind of live in a gray area, and then we hire one person to come tell us which way we need to go that one day. And so I try not to get too extreme in terms of type, but just find ones that just check the most boxes. And not necessarily my job to come find the best presented one or find the best shown one, just find the one that I like the best. And that's what I've done the last 2 days, and certainly enjoyed it. So again, you may disagree, but I've just tried to do my part and describe to you what I see and what my thought process is, and have enjoyed it very much. So before we get you some champions, I guess my one thing I always try to tell the kids, tell people thank you. This is hard work. Your parents or your ag teachers or whoever responsible for getting you here have had to take off probably no telling how many days of work to get you here, spent no telling how much money to get you projects, to get them in the ring, to get a place to stay. It all costs a lot of money. And so if you're an exhibitor standing ringside, if you're one of the 9 out here, you know, a simple thank you goes a long way. And so be sure to be appreciative of the people that are around you that make this all possible. Goat Show's been very, very good. Again, I'll reiterate that. As we get them back out here, there's one that just kind of looks the part to me, and then I think it gets just a little bit closer in terms of how you want to shuffle the rest of them. But again, my congratulations to all these exhibitors. I can't be complimentary enough to the breeders in this state, the people that are responsible for getting them looking this way, to the exhibitors. Again, I truly mean it. You'll go a lot of places and not find a show with this kind of numbers that are this deep in quality. And so it's been very much enjoyable experience on my part. I'll set the mic down, show you the top 3 of your market show at the Virginia State Fair. One last time, one bigger round of applause for this set of exhibitors.
Your champion market goat comes from the heavyweight division, exhibited by Anna Summerendike. Your reserve champion comes from the lightweight division, exhibited by Ella Warrens. Once again, let's thank our judge for being here today, Mr. Barrett Carlisle. Thanks so much for having him here today. Third overall comes from your reserve in the heavyweight division, exhibited by Hannah Summerendike. We now have a break until 4 p.m. before the registered sheep show. We'll see you back